There's a device you can buy at Walmart right now for under $200 that does the same core job as a $10,000 solar panel system. Not a knockoff, not a toy. The same lithium iron phosphate chemistry, the same maximum power point tracking or MPPT charge controller, the same pure sine wave inverter, just in a package the size of a lunchbox instead of a garage wall. And the reason most homesteaders and preppers don't own one isn't the technology. It's that the solar industry's pricing makes the $10,000 system look like the only option. Well, it is not. Here's exactly what that $200 box is, what it does, and the math that tells you whether it belongs in your setup. To understand why the $200 gadget is real, you first have to understand why a full off-grid system costs $10,000. Because the surprise isn't that the cheap option exists, it's that the expensive option is expensive for reasons that have nothing to do with the panels. Solar panels are actually the cheap part. A quality 400-watt monocrystalline panel runs $80 to $150 at U.S. retail prices in 2026. 4 of them give you 1,600 watts of generation capacity for $500 to $600. So where does the other $9,400 go? It goes into everything else a complete system requires. A charge controller, the device that manages power flow from panels into batteries without cooking them, runs $200 to $600 for a quality MPPT unit. An off-grid inverter capable of handling surge loads from refrigerator compressors and well pumps costs $500 to $1,500. Wiring, fusing, breakers, and mounting hardware at another $1,000 to $2,000. And then there are the batteries. This is where the real money goes. Lithium iron phosphate battery packs, the current standard for off-grid storage, now run roughly $280 to $450 per kilowatt hour at scale, down significantly from even 2 years ago. A modest home needs around 10 kilowatt hours to get through a night. That's $3,000 to $5,000 in batteries alone before you've wired a single thing. Add it up: panels, controller, inverter, wiring, batteries. You're at $8,000 to $15,000 for a DIY build and $10,000 to $25,000 installed. That's not price gouging. For a whole home off-grid system, that's correctly priced. The question is whether a whole home off-grid system is actually what you need. The device I'm talking about is a portable power station in the 256 to 300 watt-hour range. Units like the EcoFlow River 2, the Bluetti EB3A, or comparable models from other brands sit at $150 to $270 at retail in 2026 and regularly drop below $200 on sale at Walmart, Amazon, or AliExpress. Here's what's inside the box: a lithium iron phosphate battery pack, the same chemistry used in serious off-grid installs, a built-in MPPT charge controller that maximizes solar input regardless of light angle or temperature, a pure sine wave inverter, typically 300 to 600 watts, which means it runs sensitive electronics, laptops, CPAP machines, medical devices, without damaging them the way modified sine wave units can, a battery management system that prevents overcharging, overdischarging, and thermal runaway, a C outlets, USB-A, USB-C, and 12-volt DC output, all on one unit, all managed by onboard software. A decade ago, sourcing those components separately would have cost $800 to $1,200. Chinese manufacturing scale and lithium cell commoditization collapsed that price to $200. The physics inside the cheap box is identical to the physics inside the expensive system. The electrons don't know what the label says. There are two real limitations, and I'm going to be straight about both. Limitation 1, capacity. 256 watt-hours is not a lot. A typical full-size refrigerator draws around 150 watts and cycles roughly 30 to 40% of the time, consuming somewhere between 1 and 2 kilowatt-hours per day. A 256 watt-hour unit would be drained by your refrigerator in 2 to 3 hours. You're not replacing your refrigerator's power source with this gadget. Limitation 2, it doesn't scale simply. Consumer portable power stations aren't designed to run in parallel the way purpose-built battery banks are. You can't buy 5 of them and treat it as one unified 1,280 watt-hour system without workarounds. You'd be managing 5 separate units. Those limits are real. Here's what they actually mean for your use case. The mistake people make is comparing this gadget to a full off-grid system. That's the wrong comparison. The right comparison is against the specific problems it actually solves. And when you run those numbers, the $200 unit wins decisively. The national average is roughly 8 hours of outage time per year, longer in the South and hurricane-prone areas. For most of those hours, your actual needs are modest. Keep devices charged, run a CPAP, maintain some lighting, maybe power a small fan. A $200 power station with a 100-watt solar panel at $80 handles all of that comfortably. 4 to 6 phone charges, a full night of CPAP, 10+ hours of LED lighting, 6 to 8 hours of laptop use. Compare that against a whole home standby generator at $3,000 to $5,000 installed, plus annual maintenance, plus fuel you have to store and rotate. Over 10 years, a generator covering 8 hours of annual outages costs you hundreds of dollars per hour of actual use. The $280 solar setup costs a fraction of that, requires zero fuel, zero maintenance, and produces no carbon monoxide inside your home. If you're powering a hunting cabin, a weekend retreat, or a van build, a $10,000 system is almost certainly the wrong tool. Your actual nighttime loads in a small space, LED lights, phone charging, a laptop, a 12-volt mini fridge, total somewhere between 150 and 350 watt-hours per night for most setups. One $200 power station, recharged daily by a single 100-watt panel, covers that completely. Total cost, $280. A properly sized traditional system for those same loads with a charge controller, battery, and inverter runs $1,500 to $3,000 minimum. The $280 setup isn't a compromise. It's the correctly sized tool for a small load. This one gets overlooked. If you're still on grid but want to cut your bill, running daytime loads, a chest freezer, a router, a laptop, phone charging, off a solar recharge power station instead of the grid offsets roughly 1 to 2 kilowatt hours per day. At the U.S. average of around 17 cents per kilowatt hour, that's $62 to $124 saved per year. On a $280 investment, 2 to 3 year payback, then 8 to 12 more years of free returns within the panel warranty period. No permit, no electrician. You're plugging appliances into a box instead of the wall. Don't buy watt hours. Buy enough watt hours for your specific load. Here's how to calculate that in 10 minutes. List every device you want to run. Write the wattage next to it. It's on the label or the spec sheet. Estimate how many hours per day you'll actually run it. Multiply wattage by hours to get watt hours per device and add them up. A realistic small cabin example. LED lights. 20 watts times 4 hours equals 80 watt hours. 2 phones charging. 20 watts times 2 hours equals 40 watt hours. Laptop, 60 watts times 3 hours equals 180 watt hours. 12-volt mini fridge, 45 watts times 8 hours equals 360 watt-hours. Water pump, brief, 60 watts times 0.5 hours equals 30 watt-hours. Total, 690 watt-hours per day. That's more than one 256 watt-hour unit. But notice that nothing on that list needs to run simultaneously from a single source. The mini fridge can run directly off its own small panel and a basic charge controller. The lights, phone, and laptop run from the power station. Split the loads by type, size each source correctly, and a $400 to $500 hybrid setup outperforms a $3,000 rigid system because it's actually matched to what you're doing. Sizing rule: your daily consumption should be no more than 80% of rated capacity, and your solar input should be able to replace that in 6 hours of good sun. 200 watt-hours per day needs a 250 watt-hour unit and at least a 40-watt panel. 500 watt-hours per day needs either a larger unit or a split-load strategy. On panels, almost every portable power station accepts standard MC4 solar connectors, which means any quality monocrystalline panel works with it. A 100-watt rigid panel runs $80 to $100. Skip the branded panel that matches your power station. It's the same cells at a markup. Buy on wattage, connector compatibility, and warranty from a manufacturer with a track record. One more number worth knowing: cycle life. Budget units typically deliver 500 to 1,000 full charge cycles before capacity drops noticeably. Quality units, EcoFlow, Blue Eddy, Jackery's upper tier, are rated at 2,500 to 3,000 cycles. At 1 cycle per day, that's the difference between 2 years and 8 years of useful life. Check the spec sheet before you buy. Cycle rating matters more than brand name. I want to be precise about where this stops making sense, because this is where people waste money in the wrong direction. It does not replace a whole home off-grid system. If you're powering central HVAC, a well pump, an electric stove, and a chest freezer anywhere near 20 to 30 kilowatt hours per day, you need the full system. The $10,000 price tag is correct for that job. It does not handle high surge motors. Well pumps, air compressors, and large power tools pull 3 to 6 times their running wattage on startup. A 300 to 600 watt portable inverter won't survive that surge. For those loads, you need a purpose-built off-grid inverter or a generator with real surge capacity. It is not a permanent install. It's a tool with a service life. Know the cycle rating of what you're buying and factor that into the cost math over time. Here's what the $10,000 quote doesn't say out loud. For the specific problems most preppers, homesteaders, and off-grid beginners actually face, outages, weekend cabins, van builds, grid shaving, the $280 kit solves 80% of the problem at under 3% of the cost. The 20% gap is real. For some of you, that 20% is exactly why you're watching this channel, and for you, the full system is the right call. But for everyone else, the people who want resilience without a second mortgage, who want to survive a storm, who want to build real skills before committing to a full build, the $280 kit is the right starting point, not because it's a cheap substitute, but because it's the correctly sized tool for the job you actually have right now.